Alright, tired of tripping on this big grinder that I bought. Showed you guys this about a week ago, I think. Got this for $5, and even though it's an AEG, and even though the cord is unbelievably in bad shape, this thing actually runs. So all we really need to do is clean it up and put a new cord on it, and then I can, well, put it away for now, but have it in the future. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is cut this old cord right off. That cord is a menace to society. Look at this. That's all copper wire exposed right there. What the heck could have happened to this thing? I don't know if this was in a shed somewhere and a mouse went to town chewing this up, or I don't know. That is one junky cord. Alright, so seems to me what we want to do. Oh, that handle's on there tight. Is take this side off. So it looks like if we take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Phillips head screws out of here and these 2 Phillips head screws on the end, I bet you this whole half just comes right off. Makes life easy. Can't get over how dirty this is. Now take it from somebody who's been there, done that. You want to take this cover off on any kind of a power tool like this, slowly and carefully, because they have a nasty habit of just, if you just pull them apart quickly, you might just have something fall out of position somewhere and you're going to have a harder time figuring out where it came from. I can feel it. That is separating. There we go. A little bit of dirt in there. Alright, I like what I see. It's going to look like it's pretty straightforward to me to change the cord. I'm not looking at a situation where it's like spliced together with a couple of crimp connectors or any of that stuff. Looks like it's pretty straightforward, that it's just that the ends of the wires are stripped and then clamped. Alright, so this switch is a double pole switch. In other words, instead of having the neutral wire go to one side of the winding on the motor and then having the return path go through the a single pole switch to complete the circuit, both the neutral and the hot wire go to the switch, and then there are 2 independent switches in there, the 2 poles, and then the outputs on this side, and the wires just come in here. We've got a strain relief right here, and there's your green wire is your ground wire, and that just goes over to a little clamp right here, and then the neutral comes right here, and there's a screw right on top of that switch right there to loosen that one, and then the hot one is behind it, and it's kind of down in there, so I've got to take this switch out to get to that other screw, or at least slide it out of position. So before I do that though, I want to be very wary of exactly how this goes together. So what we've got is, this is the trigger right here, and I can't push up on the trigger because there's a lock, and that lock is this button here. So you have to push on this button, and what happens is, you can actually see this little lever right here. When I push up on this switch, this lever actually is blocking this from being able to go up. But there's a hole behind it, so if I push the lock, that moves the lever back so that it's lined up with the hole. So now the switch can go up. That's got a nice spring contact in it. It's not what that. See, I could push this pretty far, and then all of a sudden it's gonna snap those contacts closed. And when I release it, it's gonna unsnap those contacts. And that quick making and breaking of the contacts is what helps minimize damage to the contacts through arcing, which is nice. Especially on a high current inductive motor tool like this. So The question is, can I pull this out without this stuff going flying? Almost looks like it's going to let me take this out as an assembly. Yeah, okay. So I don't need to mess with taking this apart at all. Now I can get to my two little screws here, get my wires out. Alright, need a small screwdriver. And I don't think this is too small. So I just want to keep the, it's not polarity because it's not DC, but I want to keep the wire, color coding of the wires the way it is. So I'm going to make note that the wire that's facing closest to me right now, I need a better screwdriver than that. Just a minute. I think that might be a Klein. Ich bin ein Berliner. Alright. Neutral wire. Black or hot wire. Green or ground wire. Now I gotta remove this strain relief. If anybody out there does this for a living, they will notice that I'm about to do this wrong, which is, you'll notice at the ends of these wires, it's not just bare copper wires. What they actually have here is they have these little brass ferrules or clips, for lack of a better term, that get crimped onto the end of the copper wires. Then those are inserted into the hole down, and then they're the screws tighten down against those. Okay, I do not have any of those, so I am not going to put any on there. So I don't think this is going to cause the connection to overheat and have this burst into flames in my hands. But ideally, we would put those little tiny brass things on there, crimp those onto the new cord. Also, ideally, I would replace this, but I don't have one, and this one's all dry rotted, so we're not going to bother using it. All right, so I went through my bag of my whole box full of cords and stuff that I hold on to. It every once in a while I go through it and throw some stuff in a big pile and goes to the scrap yard. I've got several of these cords like this one here with the molded plug on the end here. This one's actually kind of chewed up, but the wires aren't exposed. I guess if I want to get picky I could just not use this one even, but that's alright. So anyways, you see how short it is. You know, the first question would be, well, why the heck are you putting such a short cord on? Well, because realistically, anytime I go to use this grinder, I'm going to have on an extension cord. I don't know of any place where I'm going to actually use this thing where I'm going to plug it in and be that close to the outlet. So since I'm going to be using an extension cord with it anyways, I just assume have this nice short cord on it. And what that's going to do for me is that's going to be that much less cable and stuff I've got to loop up, and when I'm not using this, when I have it stored. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to hang it somewhere or just have it in a drawer, but the whole point is that I really don't want a big long cord on this thing like it had on it. So the first thing I did was I took the old wire, I spread out the 3 wires here to see if any of them were longer than the others. Turns out they're all about the same length. So using that, you can see this is the end of the insulation here. So I held this up and basically figured out exactly where I wanted to cut the insulation back to. So now that I've done that, now I'm going to trim the insulation off the individual conductors. And I'm going to just try, yeah, that's can't quite read the numbers here on my stripper. That looks like it might be 14 gauge wire, which is typically for 15 amp at this voltage, which here in the US is going to be 120. Maybe a little lower depending on where you are in the country, or on the power grid I should say. So what I'm doing is I'm just twisting these copper braids. Now if I wanted to get picky, I could get my soldering iron out. I could flow some solder into here and that would keep them from fraying, but realistically I don't think I'm going to have a lot of trouble with that here in this application. I think once this wire is inserted into where it's going to go, and then that little connector is tightened, it's going to crush down on that wire and keep it pretty captive. That handle is on the side right where I didn't want it. I had it up that way just for the camera angle before. No harm, it didn't hit the floor. And I see I want to make sure that none of these little outer strands get bent back on themselves. So I gotta loosen that more. Alright, it's not going to win any National Electrical Code trophies, but safety awards. I've got to make sure I route these conductors in the right spot so that when I go to put this cover back on, it goes on okay. All I do is move down to this section of my workbench where I have this hole, put the handle in there, and that problem goes away. Alright, looks like the switch is back in the correct position. Strain relief is tight. All of these screws are the same size except for the two longer ones that go into the case of the motor. This whole head unit and everything's pretty heavy. It's surprising how flimsy this plastic handle housing and everything is when it's in two halves. Tip on that screwdriver is not too good. See the spacing there because of that rubber piece isn't in there. I've still got the strain relief quality, but I don't have the seal now. But I'm not going to be using this in a wet environment. Didn't even realize what that was until just now. Thought maybe it was a cap you pulled off to lubricate this head end, but that's actually a rubber cap that's pushing a button, which is actually the dowel pin that when you rotate this to the right position, you can push it in and lock it so that you can now put a spanner on there and tighten that. I think I already tried this one. Yeah, that was. You know what? I got this one though from the Wells Index box. That'll work. So I'll know when I need something to turn that what I can use. Well, the only other thing with this thing is that it's filthy. So I guess I could clean it. And some other time.